I knew it was Lena before I even answered the phone. Something about the way it rang, urgent, insistent, told me this wasn't going to be the weekly check-in we'd established since her wedding 6 months ago. "Cassidy," she sobbed, her voice breaking. "I need you. Please." My sister never begged. In 28 years, I had never heard her sound so utterly broken, not even when our parents died. I gripped the phone tighter, the cool metal pressing against my palm. "Where are you?" "Home," she choked out. "Our home. His home. I don't even know anymore. His home. Daniel's home." The sleek modernist mansion on the hill that had appeared, as if by magic, shortly after he and Lena announced their engagement. The engagement that had come barely a year after he and I had ended our 3-year relationship. "I'll be there in 20 minutes, I said, already reaching for my car keys. The drive to Havenwood Heights took exactly 18 minutes. I knew because I'd made this journey a handful of times since Lena and Daniel's lavish wedding, always for carefully orchestrated dinner parties where I played the role of supportive sister, hiding the lingering ache beneath polite smiles and mindful sips of wine. Daniel had always been ambitious. It was what first attracted me to him, that hunger, that drive. When we were together, he'd been a mid-level investment banker with dreams bigger than his paycheck. I'd loved that about him once. His determination. His absolute certainty that success was waiting just around the corner. What I hadn't loved was discovering those dreams hinged on my family trust fund. The money that had been meticulously managed and invested since my parents' deaths, ensuring that Lena and I would always be comfortable, if not extravagant. The gate to their property was open when I arrived, unusual for security-conscious Daniel, and Lena's silver Mercedes was parked haphazardly in the circular driveway, one wheel mounted on the pristine lawn. Another bad sign. I found her in the kitchen, surrounded by scattered papers, her normally perfect hair pulled back in a messy ponytail. Her eyes were swollen, mascara streaked down her cheeks. On the marble countertop sat an empty bottle of Daniel's expensive scotch. "He's been lying to me," she said without preamble, her voice hollow. "To us. All this time." I set my purse down carefully, as if any sudden movement might shatter her completely. "What happened, Lena?" She slid a document across the counter. I recognized the letterhead immediately, Crawford and Associates, my financial advisors. "Where did you get this?" I asked, my voice sharper than intended. "It was hidden in his office safe. Along with these." She pushed more papers toward me, bank statements, transfer records, investment reports. All bearing my name. All showing regular withdrawals and transfers dating back 4 years. My heart raced. "Lena, I don't understand. How did Daniel get your login information? Your signature? Your authorization?" She laughed, a brittle sound that had nothing to do with humor. "Apparently, he's had them since you two were together. He never stopped using them, Cass. Not when you broke up. Not when he started dating me. Not when we got married." The room seemed to tilt slightly. I sat down on one of the high-backed kitchen stools, scanning the documents with growing horror. $2 million, she whispered, her fingers tracing invisible patterns on the marble countertop. "He's taken almost $2 million from you, Cassidy. And used it to." She gestured vaguely around the kitchen, at the Viking stove I'd complimented, the custom cabinetry, the imported Italian tiles. The house that Daniel had proudly claimed was the fruit of his brilliant investment strategies. The house my sister thought was the beginning of their perfect life together. The house that, apparently, I had paid for. I'm so sorry, I said softly. I had no idea. Lena's head snapped up, her eyes suddenly fierce. Why are you apologizing? He stole from you, Cass. He's been stealing from you for years. I know, but... And used that money to seduce me, she continued, her voice rising. To convince me he was successful. Stable. Everything a woman could want. Everything I had once thought he was, until I discovered the calculated way he had insinuated himself into my finances, making small transfers at first, so small I wouldn't notice, then growing bolder when I didn't question them. I had discovered his betrayal 3 years ago, confronted him, ended things. But I'd never pursued legal action. Had never wanted Lena to know how thoroughly I'd been duped. How poor my judgment had been. So much for protecting her. Where is he now? I asked. Tokyo, she said, reaching for a glass and filling it with water from the tap. Business trip. At least, that's what he told me. Now I wonder if that was a lie too. I pulled out my phone, scrolled through my contacts. We need to call the police. No. The conviction in her voice stopped me. Lena, he committed fraud. Identity theft. This is serious. I know exactly how serious it is, she cut me off. And we will handle it. But not yet. She straightened her shoulders, and I saw a flash of the composed, determined sister I recognized. The one who had single-handedly planned our parents' funeral at 19. The one who had overseen the renovation of our childhood home before insisting we sell it and move forward. I need to understand everything first, she said, reaching for the scattered papers and arranging them in a neat stack. I need to know how long, how much, and where it all went. I need to know if there's more we haven't found yet. I regarded her carefully. And then? A small, cold smile played at the corners of her mouth. And then, dear sister, we're going to make sure Daniel Griffin regrets the day he ever thought he could use the Savoy sisters as his personal ATMs. The expression on her face sent a chill down my spine, not because I feared for Daniel, but because in that moment, I glimpsed just how formidable my little sister could be when crossed. And for the first time since receiving her frantic call, I felt something like hope. We spent the next 3 hours systematically combing through Daniel's home office. Lena knew most of his passwords, a fact that gave her grim satisfaction amid the betrayal, and between her access and the physical documents she'd already found, a disturbing picture began to emerge. Daniel had been siphoning money from my accounts since our 2nd year together, starting with small transfers that gradually increased as he grew more confident. When I discovered the theft and ended our relationship, he'd stopped for precisely 2 months. Then the withdrawals resumed, albeit through more sophisticated channels. He created a shell company, Lena explained, pointing to a series of transactions. Griffin Consulting Group. He transferred money from your accounts to GCG, then from GCG to his personal accounts or directly to vendors. Her voice turned bitter. For things like our wedding. Our honeymoon. This house. The wedding had been lavish, 300 guests at the Langham Hotel, exotic flowers flown in from South America, a custom Vera Wang gown for Lena. I'd contributed a generous gift, never suspecting I was also footing the bill for the entire affair. How did we miss this? I whispered, more to myself than to Lena. She looked up from the laptop, her eyes red-rimmed but clear. The same way I missed who he really was. He's smart, Cass. Calculating. He covered his tracks well. Not well enough, I countered, holding up a folder of meticulously documented transfers. Only because he's gotten sloppy lately. Overconfident. She sighed heavily. I only found these because I was looking for the insurance papers after the pipe burst in the guest bathroom. The safe was unlocked. He never leaves it unlocked. A thought occurred to me. How long have you suspected something was wrong? Lena's shoulders slumped slightly. A few weeks. Little things didn't add up. Calls he'd take in private. Statements he'd hide when I entered the room. She twisted her wedding ring absently. I thought he was having an affair. I almost wish he had been. That would have been simpler. I reached across the desk to squeeze her hand. I'm so sorry, Lena. Stop apologizing, she said firmly. This isn't your fault. But if I had pressed charges back then, reported him to the authorities, then he would have found another target. Another woman to deceive. Her voice hardened. Men like Daniel don't stop just because they get caught once. She was right, of course. I had convinced myself I was being merciful by handling the situation privately 3 years ago. In reality, I'd simply passed the problem along, to my own sister, no less. So what now? Lena glanced at her watch. Now, we need legal advice. Real legal advice. She pulled out her phone. And I know exactly who to call. 20 minutes later, we were sitting in the book-lined home office of Martin Kelsey, a retired judge who had been a close friend of our father's. Despite the late hour, he'd welcomed us warmly, listened to our story without interruption, and was now thoughtfully considering the evidence we'd brought. Identity theft, wire fraud, financial exploitation, he enumerated, tapping a finger against his desk. Potentially money laundering, depending on how these shell companies were structured. This is serious, girls. Federal crime serious. We know, Lena and I said in unison. Martin leaned back in his leather chair. The question is, what do you want to happen next? Because once this train leaves the station, you won't be able to control where it stops. Lena and I exchanged glances. I want my money back, I said firmly. And I want him to pay for what he's done, Lena added, her voice steely. Not just to Cassidy, but to me. He made me complicit in this scheme. Made me believe we were building a life together, when all along. Her voice trailed off, and I saw the depth of her humiliation in the slump of her shoulders. Lena, who had always been so careful, so meticulous in her choices. Who had waited until she was certain before agreeing to marry Daniel. Who had insisted on a prenuptial agreement not because she doubted their love, but because she believed in being practical. Martin nodded gravely. Here's what we're going to do. First thing tomorrow, Cassidy will file a police report and contact the FBI's Financial Crimes Unit. Given the amount involved and the length of time, they'll be very interested. He turned to Lena. Meanwhile, you need to protect yourself legally and financially. Separate any joint accounts immediately. Document everything you've found. And prepare for the fact that your marriage is likely over. It's already over, Lena said quietly. It was over the moment I found those documents. Even so, Martin continued gently, you need to be strategic about how you proceed with the divorce. Given the circumstances, you have grounds to invalidate the prenuptial agreement entirely. Daniel obtained your consent through fraud, which renders the contract voidable. A knock at the door interrupted us. Martin's housekeeper entered with a tray of coffee and sandwiches, reminding us that it was well past dinner time and none of us had eaten. As we ate, Martin outlined our next steps in precise detail. By the time we left his house shortly after midnight, we had a clear plan, both for the immediate emergency and for the longer legal battle ahead. In the car, Lena was uncharacteristically quiet, staring out at the passing streetlights. "You can stay with me tonight," I offered. "You shouldn't be alone in that house." "It's not a house," she said distantly. "It's a crime scene. And I'm not going back there, not tonight." She turned to me, her expression unreadable in the dim light. "But I need some time alone, Cass. To think. To process all this." "Are you sure?" "After everything." "I'm sure," she cut in, her voice gentle but firm. "I've already called Mara. She's got a guest room ready for me." Mara Hewitt, Lena's best friend since college. Practical, level-headed Mara, who had expressed subtle reservations about Daniel at the engagement party. Who had watched with worried eyes as Lena fell deeper under his spell. "Okay," I conceded. "But promise you'll call if you need anything." "Anything at all." "I promise." She reached over to squeeze my hand. "And Cass? Thank you. For coming when I called. For not saying I told you so." "I would never." "You could have," she interrupted. "You'd have every right. But you didn't. That means more than I can say." We drove the rest of the way to Mara's in silence, both lost in our own thoughts. As I watched Lena walk up the path to Mara's front door, shoulders squared despite everything, I felt a curious mixture of rage and pride. Rage at what Daniel had done to us both. Pride in my sister's resilience, even in the face of such devastating betrayal. Daniel Griffin had no idea what was coming for him. The following morning unfolded with military precision. By 9, I had filed a police report. By 10, I was sitting across from Special Agent Teresa Vasquez of the FBI's Financial Crimes Division, watching her face grow increasingly grave as she reviewed the evidence we'd compiled. "You've done some thorough legwork, Ms. Savoy," she commented, closing one folder and opening another. "Most victims don't come to us this prepared." "Most victims don't have a sister like mine," I replied, thinking of Lena's methodical approach the night before. Even in her distress, she had organized the evidence with lawyerly precision. Agent Vasquez tapped a manicured nail against one particular document. "This transfer pattern is interesting. It suggests your ex-boyfriend didn't act alone." My stomach dropped. "What do you mean?" "These transactions," she pointed to a series of withdrawals from late 2020, "they're structured differently than the others. More sophisticated. Someone with financial expertise helped set them up." The implication hung in the air between us. Could Daniel have had an accomplice? Someone who helped him hide the theft more effectively after I'd caught him the first time? Before I could pursue that disturbing thought, my phone buzzed with a text from Lena. "He's landing at 2 p.m. Meeting with my lawyer at noon. Call me after your FBI meeting." "I'm going to need to interview your sister as well," Agent Vasquez said, as if reading my mind. "And we'll be monitoring all of Mr. Griffin's accounts from this point forward. If he attempts any financial transactions when he returns, we'll know immediately." "What happens next?" I asked. "We build our case. Gather additional evidence. And when it's solid, which, given what you've provided, shouldn't take long, we make an arrest." Her expression softened slightly. "In the meantime, is there someone who can stay with you? These situations can become volatile when confronted." I thought of Daniel's carefully controlled demeanor, the way his anger always simmered beneath the surface rather than exploding outward. He wasn't the type for dramatic scenes. His revenge would be calculated, meticulous, just like his theft. I'll be fine, I assured her, even as a chill settled in my bones. But I am concerned about my sister. We'll make sure she's protected, Agent Vasquez promised. This is not her first encounter with this type of criminal behavior. Criminal. The word echoed in my mind as I left the federal building. Daniel was no longer just my ex-boyfriend or Lena's husband. He was a criminal. A thief. A fraud. And soon, the whole world would know it. I met Lena for lunch at a quiet cafe far from her usual haunts, where there was little chance of running into mutual friends or acquaintances. She looked better than she had the night before, still pale, still strained, but composed. She'd traded her loungewear for a crisp white shirt and tailored black pants, armor for the battle ahead. My lawyer thinks we can get the marriage annulled, she said without preamble, stirring her untouched soup. Fraud is clear grounds for invalidation. It will be like it never happened. Except it had happened. The wounds were real, even if the legal record might eventually be wiped clean. That's good, I said, reaching for her hand across the table. But Lena, no matter what happens with the legal proceedings, you're allowed to grieve. This is a loss. Her eyes filled with tears that she blinked away fiercely. I'm not grieving him. I'm grieving the future I thought we had. The life I was building. She trailed off, her composure slipping momentarily. I'm 31, Cass. I wanted children. A family. Some semblance of the stability we lost when Mom and Dad died. You can still have those things, I said softly. With someone worthy of you. She shook her head, a sad smile playing at her lips. Not anytime soon. I don't think I'll be trusting my own judgment for a while. I couldn't argue with that. My own relationship history since Daniel had been a series of false starts and quick endings, a testament to how thoroughly he'd shaken my faith in my ability to read people. What did your FBI agent say? Lena asked, clearly eager to change the subject. I hesitated, unsure whether to share Agent Vasquez's suspicion about an accomplice. Lena was already reeling from one betrayal. Did she need the added weight of another potential deception? But we had promised honesty between us, always. Especially now. She thinks Daniel might have had help, I said carefully. Someone with financial expertise who helped him hide the theft more effectively after I caught him the first time. Lena's face went absolutely still. Someone like a financial advisor, you mean? It wasn't a question. The implications hung heavy between us. Maybe, I acknowledged. The timing would fit. The more sophisticated transactions started around the time you and Daniel got serious. Around the time he introduced me to Barrett. Lena's voice was hollow. Barrett Levine. The financial advisor who helped us set up our joint accounts. Who advised us on our prenup. Who? She trailed off, her eyes widening in horrified realization. Who has access to all my passwords? All my accounts? I felt a chill run down my spine. Lena. She was already dialing, her movements swift and precise. Yes, this is Helena Savoy. I need to speak with someone immediately about freezing all my accounts. Yes, it's an emergency. No, I can't hold. This is regarding potential fraud. I watched as she navigated the bureaucratic labyrinth with the determined efficiency that had always been her hallmark. Within 20 minutes, she had spoken with 3 different banks, her investment firm, and her credit card companies. By the time she hung up, every financial avenue accessible to Barrett Levine had been securely closed. I can't believe I didn't see it, she said, finally returning to her now cold soup. The way they'd exchange glances during our meetings. How Barrett always seemed to know what Daniel was thinking before he said it. We see what we expect to see, I offered gently. What we want to see. That's just it, she countered, pushing the soup away entirely. I didn't want to see Daniel at first. After what he did to you, I kept him at arm's length for months. I was so careful, Cass. So determined not to fall into the same trap you had. She laughed bitterly. And then he introduced me to Barrett, who was so reassuring, so professional. Who made me feel like I was making smart, independent decisions. All while helping Daniel access my accounts as well as yours. I reached for her hand again. You couldn't have known. I should have, she insisted. The signs were there. The excessive spending. The vague explanations about where the money came from. The way he'd change the subject whenever I asked about his investments. She shook her head. I just didn't want to see it. Her phone buzzed, a text message that made the blood drain from her face. What is it? I asked. She turned the screen toward me. Just landed. Can't wait to see you, beautiful. Miss you so much. Daniel was back. What do you want to do? I asked, watching her closely. Lena took a deep breath, squaring her shoulders in a way that reminded me forcefully of our mother. I'm going to face him. On my terms. In public. Lena, I don't think that's a good idea. I'm not confronting him about the theft, she clarified. Not yet. I'm just going to observe. See if he gives anything away. Maybe learn if there's more we don't know yet. I could see the determination in her eyes, the need to reclaim some sense of control in a situation where she had been so thoroughly manipulated. I won't try to talk you out of it, I said finally. But I'm coming with you. No, she said firmly. He'll be on guard if you're there. He knows you never fully trusted him, even before. She gestured vaguely, encompassing the whole sordid situation. I don't like the idea of you facing him alone. I won't be alone, she assured me. I've already called Mara. She'll be at the next table. And I've chosen a very public restaurant, with security cameras. She reached for my hand. Trust me, Cass. I need to do this. Against my better judgment, I nodded. Okay. But you call me the second it's over. And if anything feels wrong, anything at all, you leave immediately. Promise, she said, squeezing my hand. Besides, the FBI is already watching him, right? What's the worst that could happen? The words sent a chill down my spine, an ominous foreboding I couldn't quite shake. As it turned out, my instincts were right. 3 hours later, my phone rang, not Lena's familiar tone, but Mara's. Cassidy, she said, her voice tight with barely contained panic. You need to get to Mercy General. Now. My heart seemed to stop. What happened? Is Lena? She's okay, Mara rushed to assure me. Physically, at least. But Daniel, he didn't take the news well. What news? I asked, already grabbing my keys and heading for the door. I thought she wasn't going to confront him. There was a pause, too long, too heavy. Mara, I pressed, what happened? She told him she wanted a divorce, Mara said quietly. She hadn't planned to, but something he said, it set her off. And then he just lost it. Started yelling, accusing her of spying on him, going through his things. My stomach clenched. Did he hurt her? No, nothing like that, Mara assured me quickly. But he caused a scene. knocked over a table. Security got involved. And Lena, she had some kind of panic attack. Couldn't breathe. They called an ambulance. I was already in my car, pulling out of the driveway. I'll be there in 20 minutes. Stay with her, Mara. Don't leave her alone. I won't, she promised. But Cassidy, there's something else. Something she said before they took her back. What? Mara's voice dropped to a near whisper. She said Daniel admitted it. The theft. But he claimed it was your idea. That you told him to do it. The world seemed to tilt on its axis. That's ridiculous. Why would I? I know, Mara cut in. It's obviously a lie. But that's what he told her. And Cassidy. I think she might believe him. The drive to the hospital was a blur, my mind racing with the implications of Mara's words. Daniel had always been manipulative, skilled at twisting situations to his advantage. But this, claiming I had orchestrated my own financial victimization, was a new level of calculated deception. And the fact that Lena might believe it, even momentarily, stung more deeply than I wanted to admit. I found them in a curtained cubicle in the emergency department, Lena, pale and small in the hospital bed, Mara hovering anxiously nearby. Neither noticed me at first, engrossed in an intense, whispered conversation that cut off abruptly when I cleared my throat. Cass, Lena said, her voice scratchy and faint. You came. Of course I came, I replied, moving to her bedside and taking her hand. It felt cold, fragile. Are you okay? What did the doctors say? Panic attack, she confirmed, not quite meeting my eyes. They gave me something to calm me down. Said I can leave once my heart rate stabilizes. Mara touched my shoulder. I'm going to get some coffee, she said, with a meaningful glance toward Lena. Give you two a chance to talk. The silence after she left was heavy, laden with unspoken questions. He told you it was my idea, I said finally, unable to bear the tension any longer. The theft. The fraud. Lena's eyes filled with tears. He said you set up the whole thing. That after your breakup, you wanted revenge. That you. She swallowed hard. That you sent him after me deliberately. To hurt me. The accusation was so absurd, so completely contrary to everything I'd ever felt for my sister, that for a moment I couldn't form a response. Lena, I finally managed, you can't possibly believe that. Of course I don't, she said quickly, too quickly. I pulled my hand away. But part of you wonders. Doesn't it? She wouldn't look at me, and in her silence, I had my answer. How could you even consider it? I demanded, hurt spiking through me. After everything we've been through together? After everything I've done to support you? I don't know what to believe anymore. Lena burst out, color finally returning to her cheeks. My whole life with him has been a lie. Nothing is what I thought it was. So forgive me if I'm questioning everything right now. The outburst seemed to drain what little energy she had left. She sank back against the pillows, suddenly exhausted. He was very convincing, she said softly. He had details, Cass. Dates. Conversations you two supposedly had. He said you were bitter after the breakup, that you wanted to teach him a lesson. That. Stop, I cut her off, unable to hear any more of Daniel's lies. Just stop. None of that is true. Not a word. She finally met my eyes. I know, she whispered. Deep down, I know. But he's had me doubting my own reality for so long now. It's called gaslighting, I said, gentler now. It's what abusers do. They make you question your own perceptions, your own memories. Until you don't know which way is up anymore. She nodded slowly. The whole time he was talking, there was this voice in the back of my head saying it couldn't be true. That you would never do that to me. But then he'd say something else, something so specific, and I'd start to wonder. That's exactly what he wants, I told her. To drive a wedge between us. Because together, we're too strong for him to manipulate. A tear slid down her cheek. I'm sorry, Cass. I should never have doubted you. Not even for a second. I sat on the edge of the bed and pulled her into a hug, feeling her fragile form shake with silent sobs. It's okay, I murmured into her hair. You've been through hell. Anyone would be confused. But even as I comforted her, a cold fury was building inside me. Daniel had spent years stealing from me, then married my sister under false pretenses. And now, when cornered, he was trying to poison the one relationship that had sustained us both through every tragedy and challenge. When Mara returned with coffee, she found us still locked in that embrace. Lena's tears soaking my shoulder as years of carefully maintained composure finally crumbled. The doctor says she can go home now, Mara informed us quietly. Where should I take her? My place, I said firmly. She's staying with me. I gave Lena a gentle squeeze. Both of you are. I don't want either of you alone right now. Lena pulled back, wiping at her eyes. What about Daniel? What if he tries to find me? Let him try, I said, with more confidence than I felt. We've filed police reports. The FBI is involved. He can't touch you now. But as I helped her gather her things, I couldn't shake the gnawing worry in the pit of my stomach. Daniel was cornered, desperate. And I knew from bitter experience that desperation made him dangerous in ways that weren't always obvious until it was too late. We needed to be ready for whatever came next. A heavy, driving rain welcomed us to my modest colonial home, the house I'd purchased after selling my share of our parents' property, determined to build a new life that wasn't haunted by memories of loss. Spare bedrooms made up, I told Lena as I helped her inside, one arm around her waist. The medication they'd given her at the hospital had left her drowsy and unsteady. And there's a pull-out sofa in the office for Mara. Thanks, Cass, Mara said softly, following with the overnight bags she'd collected from her place. For everything. I nodded, too emotionally drained for further conversation. The shock of the day, of the past 24 hours, was finally settling in, leaving me hollow and exhausted. We got Lena settled in the guest room, tucked under the duvet with a cup of chamomile tea and strict instructions to rest. She was asleep almost before we left the room, the combination of emotional trauma and sedatives finally overwhelming her. She'll be okay, Mara reassured me as we made our way back to the kitchen. Lena's resilient. Always has been. She shouldn't have to be, I said, more sharply than I intended. She shouldn't have to recover from this kind of betrayal. Not after everything she's already been through. Our parents' sudden death in a car accident when Lena was 19 and I was 22. The burden of sorting through their affairs, deciding what to keep and what to let go. The crushing weight of grief that had nearly swallowed us both. No, she shouldn't, Mara agreed, accepting the glass of wine I offered. But here we are. Here we were indeed. Another crisis, another painful reassessment of everything we thought we knew. Another rebuilding. Did she tell you exactly what happened at the restaurant? I asked, settling into a chair at the kitchen table. Before Daniel's outburst? Mara swirled the wine in her glass, considering. not in detail. She said he was acting strange from the moment he arrived. Nervous, checking his phone constantly. When she asked about his trip, he gave vague answers, kept changing the subject. I nodded. He must have suspected something was amiss, even before she mentioned divorce. Then he started talking about some investment opportunity, Mara continued. Something that would require temporarily reallocating some assets. He asked if she'd be willing to liquidate some of her investments. My blood ran cold. He was going to run. Mara looked up sharply. What? Think about it, I said, the realization crystallizing as I spoke. The FBI is watching his accounts now. He can't access my money anymore. He probably tried while he was overseas, found the accounts frozen, and panicked. So he was going to use Lena's money instead, Mara finished, her expression darkening. Drain her accounts and disappear. Exactly. The thought made me sick. That's when she confronted him about the divorce? Mara nodded. She said something clicked. She realized he was planning something, and she just snapped. Told him she wanted out, that it was over. And that's when he lost it, I guessed. That's when he started spinning his story about you, Mara corrected, her voice tight with anger. Trying to drive a wedge between the two of you. Classic abuser move, isolating the victim from their support system. Before I could respond, my phone rang, Agent Vasquez's number flashing on the screen. Ms. Savoy, she said as soon as I answered, her voice clipped and professional. We need to talk. Are you somewhere private? I glanced at Mara, who took the hint and moved to the living room, out of earshot. I am now, I confirmed. What's happened? Daniel Griffin has just emptied your sister's checking account. $30,000, withdrawn in person at the First National branch downtown. My heart sank. That's impossible. She froze all her accounts this afternoon. Apparently not all of them, Agent Vasquez replied grimly. We're looking into it now. Do you know where your sister is? She's with me, I said, relief washing through me despite the dire news. At least Lena was safe. Sleeping. She had a difficult confrontation with Daniel earlier today. So we heard, Agent Vasquez said dryly. The restaurant's security cameras caught the whole scene. Mr. Griffin is on our radar now, but I need to warn you, he's likely desperate, and desperate people make dangerous choices. A chill ran through me. What should we do? Stay where you are. Lock your doors. We have agents monitoring Mr. Griffin's movements, but until we can locate and apprehend him, consider him unpredictable. Her voice softened slightly. We're moving as quickly as we can, Ms. Savoy. After ending the call, I sank against the kitchen counter, the weight of everything crushing down on me. I hadn't told Lena about the checking account. Couldn't bear to wake her with more devastating news. I found Mara in the living room, her face illuminated by the blue glow of her laptop screen. Daniel emptied one of Lena's accounts, I said without preamble. $30,000. Mara's eyes widened. But how? She froze everything. Not everything, apparently. I ran a hand through my hair, frustration and fear tangling into a knot in my chest. Agent Vasquez says he's in the wind. Possibly dangerous. Thunder rolled outside, a perfect accompaniment to the dread settling over us. What do we do now? Mara asked, her voice small against the drumming rain. I looked toward the hallway that led to where my sister slept, vulnerable and trusting despite everything. We protect her, I said simply. Whatever it takes. As I moved to check the locks on the doors and windows, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. I know you're together. This isn't over, Cassidy. Tell Lena I'll be coming for what's mine. I showed the message to Mara, who went pale. Call the police, she whispered. Now. Beyond the windows, lightning split the sky, illuminating the rain-slicked driveway for just a moment, long enough to see a dark figure standing motionless beneath the old oak tree, watching the house with patient, predatory intent.